welcome to Message to Lightworkers podcast, an interview series created to share and connect through our healing work and life path. My name is Bri Hernandez, aka Santora Kuma, and I'll be your host for today. I will be sharing each guest's information in the info box. I just ask that if you feel inspired and motivated by these stories, that you please share, like, and subscribe so this channel may grow infinitely to inspire and motivate other people and light workers around the world. I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this session. Today we have a very special visitor. Her name is Jadurani Syamarani Didi, who is a master painter of Bhakti art and one of the most stalwart teachers of Bhakti yoga in current times. She is among the first disciples of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the world-renowned founder, Acharya of ISKCON, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And she's also a prominent student of Srila Prabhupada's close associate, Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Under their expert spiritual guidance, she has created nearly 300 works of devotional art and is recognized as one of the most influential artists to emerge out of the Hare Krishna movement and his subsequent school of art. After meeting Srila Prabhupada in Tompkins Square Park in New York City in 1966, her life quickly evolved into a vibrant whirlwind of devotional service and sacred art, which has expanded over the past 5 decades, touching the lives of millions around the world. She is also a senior editor of Srila Narayana Goswami Maharaja's lectures and books with Gaudiya Vedanta publications, and she continues to produce vivid canvases which serves as windows into the spiritual world. And in 2018, at the Bhakti Fest in Joshua Tree, California, she was presented with the annual Humanitarian Award by Deepak Chopra. This honor was bestowed upon her for over 50 years of exquisite devotional art and her efforts to alleviate the suffering of the world's people through the teachings of Bhakti yoga. Well, thank you for being with us. This is such a tremendous honor to have you on here to share your story.
I'm honored to be here, Sandara.
Yes. Okay. So I have to say, this was the most tongue-twisting intro for me, but it has really opened me up to new vowels, to new vowel sounds. So I read a piece of your story on your website, and you were talking about how you kind of were led into the doorway of the Krishna conscious movement. And this was back in 1966, I believe. And you were talking about how you were just in a park. I think it was with your boyfriend, just in a park, kind of living your life. Could you tell me like the story before and then kind of open the window to like your whole experience and like, how did you feel? What happened? Can you give us a little bit of that story?
Okay, thank you for asking, Sundara. So as I was mentioning to you earlier, I think we have like an echo. So after I say something, I get repeated in the echo. Okay, try again. So you asked 7 or 8 questions, and I mentioned that I'm sure the story that I tell prior to the questions you'll find answers to the questions. Because one of your questions was, can I share a lie that I was living and how I came to understand the truth beyond that lie and how that helped me in my life? That was one of the questions. So it might be a little more astonishing and eye-opening than the usual answers you may receive to what lie I was living. So the lie that I was living is that I was imagining But I wasn't the only one, because everybody in the whole material world is living the same lie, which is that I am this body and everything in relation to the body is mine, which those who are actually seers of the truth can laugh at simultaneously and cry at. Cry at because they know it's the cause of our suffering, and laugh at in its absurdity. It's like if I was going to think that this jacket, this sweater, this scarf, this hat is me, and then I try my darndest to make it happy, to make it perfect, I will always be frustrated because I'm not taking care of the real me. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I'm absorbed in the clothing. So I was living in that lie, which took the form, everybody's lie takes a different form. My form was that I was a student at a university in New York City, like all or most 1960s hippies and students. I used to take hallucinogens and marijuana to try to reach another reality, being frustrated and disappointed with the reality that was trying to be imposed upon us by our superiors like parents, politicians, teachers, and so on. So one day, in the middle of that total lie, I was walking actually through Tompkins Square Park and to visit a boyfriend. And on the way, all of a sudden, there was Srila Prabhupada. He was about 70 at the time, wearing saffron robes, playing this little dim dim bongo drum, chanting Hare Krishna like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he had about 10 followers dancing around him, playing cymbals and other tambourines and things, and dancing around on an Indian rug, and he was sitting in the middle. So immediately I thought, oh, he looks like a genie from another planet coming down on a magic carpet. And I still think like that whenever I see him. So to make a longer story short, I came to the temple, not knowing what it was, following them. And then he told me that we are eternal and everything around us is temporary. So that was the first shock of my lie. Previously, under the influence of the drugs like marijuana and LSD, I would think, okay, I'm not this body, but I'm the all-pervading impersonal God. I'm that all-pervading it. But I was totally miserable thinking like that because why? That was another lie. So then when I was 19, all of a sudden, and because I believe in reincarnation, I didn't then, but we're full followers of reincarnation, which gives us the paradigm that all species, whether amoebas, bacteria, cockroaches, birds, humans, demigods, lions, they're all our brothers and sisters. So it's a very warming paradigm. So I forgot the trend, what I was saying. Yes, so when I was 19, all of a sudden, as I said, because I believe in reincarnation now, at the time I didn't know. So all of a sudden, thoughts came to me from past lives, which I didn't know at the time from where. Like I was working as a secretary in the summer, as a summer job in my university. And all of a sudden, seeing the crowds in New York City. At that time, it was crowded. Now I hear it's desolate. So there was like millions of people at lunchtime going here and there in the intersections. And all of a sudden, I found myself asking, well, where are they really going? Where are they really coming from? And like, what's the aim of it all? So then when I got home, I asked my mother, again, I don't know from where, uh, Mom, if I was not born from your womb, would I still exist? And she was flabbergasted. Well, I guess so. And so from then, it was a mood of search. Like, why am I not happy? I'm trying. Well, and if I'm God, why can't I control anything? So there was some like little higher questions. And then when I met Prabhupada, from that moment, he was nothing but answers. I started attending his classes in the morning, evening on Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means the consciousness that I'm not the body, yes, but who am I? I'm spirit soul, infinitesimal spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is a Sanskrit word that means the all attractive, supreme reservoir of all truth. Not an impersonal truth, but let's see, a beautiful cloud complexioned youth. And so I started attending the classes. Then he asked somebody to ask me, what talents do I have? Because the idea is, if I'm part and parcel of Krishna, like my hand is part and parcel of my body, then what does my hand want to do? It wants to serve the whole body. It wants to, for example, serve the stomach if it wants to get healthy. So then I said, well, it's sort of art, although I was a very, very terrible artist. So he started to engage me. And then gradually, I'm going to show you some pictures from my memoir that I started gradually doing for Srila Prabhupada's temple and book, all about a reality that's unimaginable. Like look at Vishnu. He's sitting on a throne made of a transcendental many-hooded serpent. And here's Krishna in his forearm form, where he's sitting in everyone's heart as the witness of all our activities and the giver of the results. Then I learned that everything didn't. See, before I met Prabhupada, I went to the Metropolitan Museum of something or other, I don't remember, planetarium, perhaps, Hayden Planetarium. And I was watching in their big all around screen that we all came from a big bang, which is very discouraging because thinking that I'm already thinking I'm dead matter, and then thinking that my source is dead matter, which has no life, no happiness. How can I find happiness in, well, just to be frank, pus, blood, stool, and urine, bones and marrow? So, so here from Prabhupada, I learned that actually we all came from Krishna, and he has a representative called Brahma. You can see him there, four-headed, and there are different Brahmas who manifest the different universes under the guidance of Krishna. So then and this is Krishna here, and he's instructing his friend Arjun, because Arjun was lamenting that while speaking learned words that you don't want to kill your relatives, even though they're the enemy in this civil war where they're all torturing people, and the kingdom rightly belongs to you. It's your duty to get it back for the good of the people. So Arjun didn't want to fight. He said, I'd rather live as a beggar than to live at the cost of the lives of my superiors. So Krishna said, well, speaking learned words, you're mourning for what's not worthy of grief. For the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead, because never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will ever we cease to be. We're all immutable, unchangeable, invisible, inconceivable. We don't die when the body dies. So that was the lie that you probably didn't expect me to say that lie, did you? That Prabhupada gradually started getting me out of. And another one of your questions was if I had to recommend one or more books. I'd like to first recommend my own meeting with Prabhupada and then with Syamarani Goswami Maharaj, how they trained me not only in my specific talent of art, but they trained the world in the most beautiful paradigm that could possibly exist. And it's a paradigm that's a reality. And then another book is this Bhagavad Gita, which means the Song of God, where Krishna is speaking about the truth. Like he says to Arjun, there's no truth superior to me, O Arjun. Everything rests in me as pearls are hung on a thread. So, I mean, anybody can say that. But Krishna showed it by the saints who wrote about him, that, for example, one small expansion of him, for example, lies down the expanse of like many, many universes. He lies down in the ocean of cause, and universes come in and out of his body by his breathing. Like that is totally inconceivable. And yet Prabhupada engaged us in painting that. Do I have that to send? Can you find that painting? So those are the books that I would recommend as a start. My memoir, because what I understand from you, Sandora, is that the ladies who are your main audience, 20 or so to 40, they are searchers. They're mostly in the middle of experiencing a crisis in their life, and which is good because this world is made of crisis. And only when we realize that I'm in a crisis can we start thinking, well, why am I in all these crises? Is there a God? And if there is, how can I connect with him and get out of it? So like this is one painting I did. It's hard to see, of course, on this little screen, of Krishna's part, Lord Vishnu with 4 hands, breathing in and out the universes. So, so this takes me from my crisis when I was a 19-year-old teenager and had the questions of life and misconceptions of life, and how I was gradually trained by Prabhupada and his what you call disciplic succession of teachers that go all the way back to the beginning of time, plus the scriptures that they get their knowledge from. You also, do you want to stop me now?
No, you can continue. You can share as much as you'd like. I was going to ask, so once you kind of discovered, okay, this is a lie, I was going to ask, what came after that? Like once you had that realization, what changed in your life? What did you start to see? And then the direction you moved from that paradigm shift?
What I started to see is that there is a real me inside the body, and there's a real everybody inside their body. And I started to see that this world was not created either by my imagination or by anybody for my enjoyment. It's created for getting out. That is, I wanted to be separate from God, so he created this material world for all of us. Okay, try, but you won't be happy. So what I started to see is whenever I would see like flowers or the sun or the moon or people, I would start to see with a completely different eyes. That is, that the flowers are all belonging to Krishna and they're all meant for his pleasure. So I stopped just smelling them but I would bring them to the temple to offer to Krishna. And then after a little bit of time, when I smelled it, it would be called prasadam, or mercy of God. And I would get spiritual benefit, that is freedom from misconception, freedom from illusion and anxiety. Just by smelling, just by eating, I started to see not to just eat, but to first offer my food to Krishna. We learn, ancient ceremonies, to not just read any old junk, because aren't we, Sundara, finding out with all this coronavirus stuff that the news is lying to us and politicians are lying to us? So I stopped reading newspapers and started to read the ancient scriptures, which are so opening to the soul, so nourishing to the soul. When the soul is nourished, then everything gets nourished. Before that, I was like a, what do you call it? Like a bird in a cage. And then the lady is just cleaning the bird cage without feeding the bird. So he's squawking and squawking, hey, I'm in here. And then he finally dies. So I started at that time to learn how to feed my real self. So everything changed, seeing others as brothers and sisters, wanting to help them, but knowing how to help them by giving them the same education by books and mainly by the chanting. Like you asked, what made the big change? I think the thing that made the biggest change is learning about the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and chanting it in congregation, singing together. And then also we have beads, and we chant on beads like rosaries, and that also makes us free from anxiety, illusion, helps us focus, helps us in our dealings with others.
So I have a question. You said you were chanting. Can you explain what a mantra is and what is the power of a mantra?
Oh, okay.
And what is it connecting you to as you are repeating the mantra?
Great. So tra means deliverance, Sanskrit suffix, and man means mind. So it's that incantation that frees the mind from the agitated mental platform and delivers the mind to blissful spiritual platform. So the power of the mantra is in the fact that it's not just a prayer, but the mantra is non-different from the person of the mantra. So when we say Hare Krishna, Krishna himself, who's the reservoir of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, who can create innumerable planets in a second, destroy them in the next second, and recreate them in the next second. He's non-different from his name. Like if I said Sandora a million times and we're in two different places, you wouldn't hear me and you wouldn't just come, you wouldn't be there. But if I say Krishna, then he's there dancing on my tongue with all of his qualities. And Hare is his pleasure energy. So we're calling to the energy of God and to God himself. So the mantra, as I mentioned, does all those things like free one from anxiety, give one knowledge. In fact, there's one Sanskrit phrase, vidya badu jivanam, all knowledge is at your feet by chanting. Powers, if one is chanting purely, he can touch somebody and bring them back to life. And focus, intelligence, and freedom from illusion, basically, and seeing God in everything and everything in God, and everyone is part and parcel of God.
So it kind of sounds like mantra would be like food for the soul and mind.
Yes, exactly. You got it. So this is when we say Hare Krishna, this is Krishna, and this is Hare. Now, Hare is really an invocative word that means oh Hara. Hara means one who is so powerful that she captivates the mind of Krishna. And she's Radha. She's Krishna's pleasure potency. And by her love, she captures Krishna's mind. So Krishna is controlled by love. And any power that we have for loving him, which in turn gives us automatic love for all beings. Like if I love the whole, I naturally love the parts. That's all coming from her.
I love that imagery. That's really beautiful.
Uh-huh.
At what point did you know that it was time for you to change your path and kind of go full force with this calling? This
Actually, it was at the same time that I met him and started coming to classes. Although I had doubts, well, maybe I am this body. And if I am this body, then I should just concentrate on the bodily happiness because soon it's going to be over. But then what? So even though creeping old habit doubts would come, Prabhupada was kind enough to initiate me into the Hare Krishna mantra. And really, just from then on, I gave up school. Not that everyone has to give up school, don't get me wrong, but I gave up school, understanding that the teachers weren't teaching me anything. And I started painting for his temples. Then in 1992, which was Prabhupada left the vision of the world in 77. So in 92, I met Srila Prabhupada's dear friend and spiritual successor, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, who you mentioned earlier. And he continued me on the path of painting and on the path of Bhakti Yoga. Maybe you're thinking, okay, what's Bhakti Yoga? So yoga means linking God and us together, just like you link two bricks together by cement. So God and us get linked together by the yoga of affection. That's called bhakti. Here's another painting I did of Radha and Krishna. And these are all available on my website, bhaktiart.net. That's Radha and Krishna again. There's Radha alone. And this you might be interested in. This is the cycle of birth and death. This is the lie that I was living. But once, excuse me for talking so much, Sandora, when I was a kid, I had a dream that I was being chased by this giant 3-story high monster. And then in the dream, I was thinking, I wonder if this is a dream. So I pinched myself in the dream. You pinch yourself to see if you're dreaming. And then I said to myself, yeah, this hurts. So it must be real, but it was still the dream. So this is all the lie that I was living. And then this is a poster of the very latest painting that I just recently finished a couple of years ago of the original chanting party that is Radha herself and her associates.
So were you able to support yourself strictly on painting throughout this journey? Or did you have to kind of stray away and have work or do average jobs? Like, did you have to, basically, the question I'm asking is, how did you sync living in this modern world with living in your spiritual path?
That's an excellent question. Personally, I never maintained myself by the paintings because I was always painting for Prabhupada's temples and then later on for his books. And so that's where the painting went, on the temple walls. So I never made any money for it. But I started living in his temples almost like a couple of months after I joined, one temple after another in different cities. So I was always maintained by the temple, and I would preach and distribute books, and that also brought in finances, but I would always turn that in to the temple. In some temples, sometimes I would keep a part of the profit of selling books to maintain myself. And maintain myself meant my services to Prabhupada and Srila Narayan Maharaj and the whole Krishna consciousness mission. But that doesn't mean that, because in those days, there were so many temples and they were so big and you could just move right in. And most of us didn't have families at the time, we were young. But nowadays it's kind of different. And you have a big house and you need a job. Unless you turn your house into a temple and make your house totally available for people, and then they come and out of gratitude they want to help you maintain the temple. So yeah, I never really had to worry about money as long as I was serving. And it's not, go ahead, no, go.
I was gonna say it kind of sounds like the path, like one of like a nun or a monk or someone who's just a strictly devotional. Would you say
Exactly.
that's the equivalent of like your life of?
Yes, but of course not, again, especially in nowadays, hardly anybody can do that. So your question, I guess, still remains, because you want to know if I have any advice for the light workers. So, and how to balance material and spiritual life. So if we are engaged in daily chanting and remembering by reading and by hearing lectures and offering our food so that we don't get any karmic reaction, because even the vegetables have life. And so even if we eat vegetables, our teaching say that even if I just eat vegetables, but I haven't offered it to Krishna, still there's a reaction that I have to suffer some karma for that. Whereas if I eat foods that are offered to Krishna, then not only is there no reaction for that, but I get purified from previous reactions to immoral activities, which I'd have to suffer, by the law of reincarnation and action and reaction, if I was just eating. So if I do that every day and associate with those who are also on the path, especially those who are more on the path than me, so when I have doubts and confusions, I have people to confide in, then of course I can work, and I have to work, but my work becomes gradually spiritualized because I more and more use it for my new spiritual life in the service of the Lord. But then I want to make sure that my work isn't contrary to my bhakti path. That is, if my work, for example, is selling meat, then that goes against what I'm trying to do. And I, again, have to get a sinful reaction from that.
So here's a question of right now, there's a big, I guess, movement of people that are kind of opening up to like the spirituality, the realm of spirituality, and the idea of karma. If you could talk a little bit about karma, and then also how that contributes to the way that we are experiencing life from how you would understand it to be. Because some people would argue, maybe that's part of their karmic path to sell meat or go against something to learn something. The idea that you're in this lifetime to clear up something so that you don't have to necessarily come back to earth again. So if you could somehow tie that in to make it, I don't know, I cannot simplify it, but maybe if you could, karma the idea
Yeah.
of experiencing our karma in this life, and then the idea of clearing karma. What does that mean?
Okay. So what is karma? Let's start with that, because many, without knowing the real definition of karma, just use the word inappropriately or irrelevantly. So according to the scriptures, ancient Vedic scriptures, where the word originally comes from, karma has a few different meanings. Karma means fruitive action, action that reaps a material result. For example, if I throw something up, this isn't exactly karma, it's a law of nature, but if I throw up a bowl, it will come down. There are laws. So in the world of the laws of karma, as you sow, so shall you reap. If you punch somebody, you'll have to get the reaction. You might get it at the moment, he'll just punch you right back. But otherwise, suppose I cheated someone. That means I have to get cheated in the future, either by that person or another person. Can I tell you a nice story from the ancient literature? There was a old lady, very beautiful, but old, and she was like in the Brahmin class. That means like the knowing God. She was very religious. And she would maintain herself by begging. And her main thing that she did was worshiping her deities or statues of God. So I'm looking back because we have some deities of Krishna behind me. So one morning, she engaged her little son to pick flowers to be offered to the deity, like this, picking the flowers from the tree or the bush, and then offering them at the feet of the deity. So it was very early in the morning, it was dark. And while he was doing that, a big black snake came and bit him, and he immediately died. So a hunter happened to have been watching, and he knew the art of snake charming. So he said some mantra, because mantras can be used, different mantras for anything. So he said that mantra for snake charming, and the snake went into his basket, closed it up, put it under his arm, put the boy over his shoulder, brought him back to his mother, who immediately started wailing. And then he said, "Oh, mother, this is what happened. Please give me the order to cut this snake into pieces." She said, because she was religious minded, she said, "Oh, will that bring back my son?" He said, "No." He said, she said, "Then don't." He said, "But he may kill somebody else." Still no, because she knew that she would get a reaction if she killed that son, the snake. So then the hunter decided, "I'm going to kill the snake anyway. Otherwise, I know he'll bite somebody else." He was just about to cut the snake when the snake started talking and said, "Hey, wait a minute. Don't blame me. I've lived in that bush for years and I never bit anybody. But this boy's time to die had come. I was just the instrument. So you can blame time. Time is also a person in the Vedic culture, personification of time. So all of a sudden time appeared and he said, "Don't blame me. It was the boy's time to die because of his karma. In his past life, he killed another boy, and that other boy became a snake. And now in this life, the snake is biting him and killing him back. So karma in this connection means fruit of action. As you sow, so shall you reap." Regarding what you said, somebody might want to sell meat to carry on this might be his karma in his life. So if someone is doing that, it's his karma in the sense that it's a result of his previous sinful activities. And if he continues in that karmic path, then he'll have to get the results of that. Like my Guru Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he uses an interesting expression. Meat means me, eat. Whoever I'm eating now, they will come back in their next life and eat me in whatever body I happen to be in. Because there are different hells too for different sins, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam scripture. So he said, so all these animals that you're indirectly killing by selling or eating, they're all standing on line. I'm next, I'm next, I'm next. So your karma made you, yes, at that moment sell meat, but as part and parcel of Krishna, who's the supreme independent, we have his qualities because we're infinitesimal, we have infinitesimal independence. I have a choice. Do I want to continue in this route or not? I can leave it or I can stay according to my choice. So that was like, what is karma? What if somebody says, I'm on my karmic path, and how do you get out of karmic reaction? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said to his friend Arjuna here, if you work for the satisfaction of the Lord and how to know what he wants, under the guidance of his pure representative, then there's no more reaction to your work. The only result that your work will have is more and more freedom, and finally full-fledged freedom, where you won't be hampered by a gross material body of pus, blood, stool, and urine, but you'll have a spiritual body made of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Does that answer the question satisfactorily, Sundara?
I think I need you to repeat that last thing you just said because I didn't quite digest that part.
Which was the last part?
The last part of where you said, it was just the last paragraph.
If you work for the satisfaction of the Lord, and how to know what he wants, what's his satisfaction, under the guidance of his pure representatives, who are his associates in the spiritual world, and who come to the material world as acharyas, as teachers, to bring us there, to free us. So if we work for the Lord's satisfaction, then no karma can touch you, but rather, the more you work for the satisfaction of the Lord, the more you'll be liberated from all reaction, which gives us this body, which is destined to X amount of suffering and X amount of enjoyment. No one can change that. If I get a broken leg, I was destined to. How do I get out of all broken legs or anything that I'm destined to? Gee, what a scary situation, and ultimately death. By Bhakti Yoga, by engaging all my senses in the service of Krishna, meaning the reservoir of all truth and pleasure. Is that more clear now?
Yes, and it sounds kind of intense because it sounds like you have to have such strict guidelines because it's so much information, you know, so much that it almost becomes, if I make this move, how does it affect me? Or if I do, how do you, I guess, get out of the pressure? How do you not see it as pressure, I guess? Or see
Very
it
good, Chris.
as,
Very good. Very good. Can I tell you a story in that regard that Srila Prabhupada told? Okay, so there was a Christian minister, and he went to a mining town. And there, they were all atheists. So he said to them, you know, they all lived in dank, dark, you know, a mine, not pleasant. So he said, you have to worship Jesus Christ. And so they said, who's Jesus? What's his number? They thought that he was another miner. He said, no, 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 he's God. So what if we don't want to? Okay, so if you don't do it, then you have to go to hell. Okay, what's that like? Well, it's dank, it's dark, there's no air. And they thought, well, we're already in that situation. What's the big deal? So he had to think fast. So he said, there's no newspapers. No newspapers. Oh my God, let's worship Jesus. So Prabhupada's comment was, sometimes a fearful situation is required to save one from a more fearful situation. Get it? So you said it's tense. I have to worry. What if I take this step? What if I take that step? But I'll answer that in two ways. Number one, everyone's always afraid anyway. There are 4 principles that guide this world, that control this world: eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing. And fearing is the predominant one. If I don't eat today, I'll die. If my husband leaves me, I'll die. I was late for work. What if my boss fires me? Everything is predominated by fear and anxiety and what if, isn't it already? Now, if I don't go that bhakti route, in the name of it's just too intense, I have to worry about whether I do this or that, then, okay, don't do this or that, don't worry about it. But Sundara, why are there 8,400,000 species of life? Why is there a bacteria? I used to live in Alachua. Now I'm in Miami, but I used to live in Alachua. And most of the trees, Sundara, in Alachua were covered by this parasite, what do you call it? Huh? Moth? Moss, this gray parasite moss. I can be a parasite moss too. I can be a dog and a cat, an insect, and get run over by a car very easily, or by eaten by a bigger animal. So that is a dreadful situation. But we see here, it took us all these births to get finally up to the human form. And we see that this human is testing out the water. What is the water? The ocean of birth and death. So if I don't care about what I do, I'll have to get a worse reaction than the worry that I have of, oh no, what do I have to do now that makes it right? But it's not really a lot of hard things. It's, you like to eat. Take 5 minutes. Well, of course, you have to believe in Krishna in order to offer food to him. It takes 5 minutes to offer. And when you prepare it, don't smell it first. Don't try to enjoy it first, because let him enjoy it. And then what happens? You get back prasadam, or mercy of God. It tastes better. It's spiritually nourishing. It's more healthy. There's no karmic reactions. You get free from past actions and unwanted thoughts and behavior. All comes from that, from eating Krishna prasadam. Plus, you get love of God from it. So it's a lot to weigh, like you said. Does that satisfactorily answer it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
If you could, what would you tell a struggling light worker to remember as they are attempting to follow their own path?
Okay, can you give an example of their own path?
So someone that is kind of following their guidance, following their intuition to make the next move in their life, but maybe perhaps they're having a little bit of doubtfulness, a little bit of fear, a little bit of uncertainty. What would you tell someone in that situation?
Okay, good question. Excellent question. I would suggest to, like, according to the Vedic philosophy, any move that you make in the material world for another material situation is all going to end up zero, because it has nothing to do with the soul. So all the material situations are zero. If you have a lot of zeros, what do you get? Zero. So if you put a 1 in front of all those zeros, you get a lot. You get 1,000, you get 1,000,000, depending on the number of zeros. So I would recommend, whatever path anyone is on, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra it's not a sectarian thing. Oh, you have to be a Hindu, or you have to you have to live in a temple, or you have to, anything like that. It's a powerful mantra for, another benefit is making us more decisive, making us more free from fear. So whatever anybody is doing, I would suggest add the Hare Krishna mantra. You'll do better in school, you'll do better in work, you'll be able to deal with your business partners or school partners in a better way.
Great. And the last question is, you could assign one I am affirmation, or in this case, mantra, to everyone on the planet, what would that be?
Okay. How many words would that affirmation be? Anything? Okay. I mean, I know that modern affirmations are, I love, I'm lovable, I forgive everyone, and I allow them to go on their path. I allow myself to go on my path. And affirmations like that, and I know your light workers are already hearing affirmations like that, and that's wonderful. So this one is a little bit unique. I am, in an affirmation, not this body. I am pure soul, eternal, full of bliss, and full of knowledge. And I am part and parcel of the supreme reservoir and personification of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Therefore, because I am a beautiful soul, I am lovable, I love, I have the power to forgive and all that, because I'm not controlled by dead matter. It was long, but they can adjust it as they like.
That was perfect. And I just want to thank you for participating in today's talk and for sharing your path,
And,
your wisdom with all of us today.
and thank you for inviting me, even though you didn't know me.
It's
Thank
okay.
you for your heartwarming trust. And I look forward to meet you again sometime.
Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna Sandara.